Okay, so this is the second class in what we call SAO, or Servant of the World. And the idea is basically how you could start your own little do-gooder company and make a decent living out of it and help the world at the same time, instead of your normal boring job. And to replace your normal boring job. And a lot of people in this room have done that to some extent or another, with varied success. But the idea is to try to organize that information and standardize that information, and then that people could learn how to, basically it would be how to get your own career going. It'd be like getting your own company going in a way, and so having the freedom of being your own boss, but still doing something wonderful, useful for humanity. So the idea is to do something good for humanity. Like once you get to a certain maturity in life, you realize that it'd be more fun to be serving other people than just consuming yourself. And it'd also be more fun to run your own company. So the idea of SAO is, on one hand, you get to run your own show, and on the other hand, you're doing something very beneficial for other people. And that was the concepts we talked about last week. I think last week we started out, well, one of the important concepts to me was Changsem, which is, who wants to take a shot? Alistair? In this context.
The wish to be of service to others.
Yeah, wanting to help others. And really recognizing several things. One, that all the happiness we get comes from other people. Like even if you just eat a hamburger, every little piece of that thing came from other people's effort and other beings' effort. So in a way, we owe it to other people. We have to pay back other people for what we're having, for our life, you know. And then secondly, you could say laksam, which is what?
Personal responsibility.
Yeah, personal responsibility, which means decision that you will pay back the world even if nobody else is interested in paying back the world, okay? So whether or not you ever hook up with other people who are interested in doing the same thing, whether or not all the people that you're around even think it's something useful to pay back the world, you're going to do it yourself. You know, like you can have the courage, decision that it's a good thing to try to serve the world, pay back the world for what it does for us. And then basically, and you know, very sincerely, it's the only thing that makes your life meaningful. It's the only thing that gives you contentment in your life. And as you get older, you realize that the reason why so many very wealthy people end up doing philanthropy is because they're able to afford every other kind of pleasure there is. You know? And I know a lot of them because I was in the diamond business, wholesale diamond business. So I saw, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of diamonds going through our hands every year. And then you meet extremely wealthy people. And what happens is there's a kind of maturity in a person's life that once you can afford to do everything, the final thing you do is philanthropy. You want to help other people. Like that's why so many really wealthy people end up helping others, because they get to try everything else that we don't get to try, right? Like they've tried every other thing that you can buy, every other kind of pleasure you could work on. They can have any possession they wish, and there's nothing like helping other people. There's no possession. Like I know huge diamond dealers from Bombay. They have hundreds of millions of dollars of diamonds. I've been in rooms in Antwerp filled with diamonds. The whole room is filled with diamonds, you know. And these people, they can't count how much money they have. The one guy I'm thinking of, he has a huge mansion in Bombay full of antique cars in the rooms. You know, he doesn't have anything else to do. He imports them from America on ships, he brings them there, he just parks them there. In each room of the mansion, there's like these really priceless antique cars, because he didn't have anything else to do. Then finally, towards the end of his life, he said, "This is ridiculous," and he started building children's hospitals in Bombay, $15 million children's hospitals, and really beautiful. And then they do cataract removal in India. Like they hire 20 doctors, and they set up huge tents in the village, and maybe 10,000 people will come and have cataracts removed, and they'll just pay for it. You know, and what I mean is once you get to a certain level in this world, you find out that the most pleasant, fun thing to do is to take care of other people. So like, we're not like that wealthy, but we can just get in on the best thing from the beginning, right? then the last thing I think we talked about last time was come. Who's Chigila? Come.
It's like the inner nature of the inner.
Yeah, your inner nature. But with regard to Sal,
It's what
your passion. Your passion. You know, like, don't forget that now you're in a position, since you're starting your own company, you can decide what product you want to make yourself. What kind of service will you provide for others? And you can design it around your own around your own passion. And I was talking with David Stump, you know, and I was saying, we were talking about what would he stay up all night to do? You know, and for him it happens to be military history, okay? No, and he wrote 2 books and they were very successful, and his wife finally had to tell him, you gotta sleep, you know, you gotta get some sleep. You know, he's up all night researching this thing. And that's a passion. You know, and most of us, I'm afraid, I mean, not many people really go after their passion, you know. You gotta find out what it is that you would stay up all night to do. Aside from DVD movies. I know, we just did our first 2 and it kept us up. But anyway, what would keep you up all night? What would you stay up all night to do? Today when I wanted to talk about, something happened between this session and the last session, which is that I was having a discussion with somebody here, who's not here right now, and we were talking about they're starting their own do-gooder company or project, and then something came up, and that's the whole subject tonight is one word. Okay. Opportunity, okay? The key thing about Sal, you know, you're running your own little private business, you know, you're going to be running your own business, your own company. And if I had to say anything that's important, it would be opportunity. When you see an opportunity, you have to jump on it, right? Like the one thing you're looking for is an opportunity. So like your ears are open like radar, you know, like you have a comm, right? You have the one thing that you love to do. Okay, I don't know what it is. The person I'm thinking of who was here, they were saying that what they really love to do is to take care of, they had been in youth programs to take care of youth who were at risk, like teenagers from 13 to 19 who might go to jail or might go to prison otherwise, and that they were helping them, and that they were wishing they could continue that here in a part of Arizona where that's not a lot of that going on right directly around here. And they were just wondering, they started to muse about doing stuff. That was their comm, you know. So I've got my radar out, you know, for opportunity. You know, is there opportunity here? You know, could something happen with this person? This person, there's an opportunity. Okay, the person is available. Person, which means they're between jobs or something like that. Okay, like somebody's got an opportunity in that sense. This person is between jobs. This person is available to do something new if they jump on it, right? Like 4 weeks from now, they might be off on something. They might run out of money. They gotta go get a straight job, and then they get stuck in it. No, then they get stuck in it, and then you can't get out of it. You see? So there's a small window of opportunity with somebody. You know, the person's available. I figure they're available for about 3 or 4 weeks. I'm just from the smell, from experience, you know. It's Earl, okay? I'm talking about Earl. So, not about anybody here. So, I just got this feeling that we have an opportunity here, you know. This guy, then he's talking that he has this friend back in Vancouver who's wealthy. And he thought that somehow this guy might help him out, you know. So I'm like listening for this. So there's a possible funding. Like you just keep your ears out, you know. It's much easier to be at a dinner party and hear somebody mention somebody who's got money who might want to help to do something than to apply to 1,400 foundations by email, which never gets you anything, okay? Like you just keep your ears open, you know. And somebody says, oh, I have this friend, they have a lot of money, and basically don't know what to do with it, you know. And what you'll find that's interesting about funding that we found out in New York. We approached some of the wealthiest people in New York, and they helped us. But what they told us, and these are like very wealthy families in New York, what they said was, the interesting thing about giving away money is that once you do it for a while, you stop because you can't find anybody worth giving money to. You know? Like the people we spoke to said, nobody has come to me with a decent project in 2 years. You know, I want to give money away, you know? But everyone who approaches me, they're just basically trying to make a buck for themselves. They're not trying to help anybody. They're not really serious. They're not organized. And so after a while, you get discouraged. As a wealthy person, you want to do good in the world. You want to serve people with your money. And you can't find anybody who has a coherent project to give it to. You know, so you end up giving it to March of Dimes because at least you know, that's the lazy funding for a wealthy person. But they'd much rather have somebody with a really exciting project and a person who's excited about it because their comm is turned on. And they come and they give them this idea that they're really excited about. So I heard that this Earl knows somebody who might give him funding. So I said, tell me about this person. So we're kind of going at this backwards. I was going to break this out into classes on this subject, this subject, this subject. But now what happened today is we have an opportunity happening. So you take it. You don't wait. I mean, that's rule number one. Okay? Opportunity comes up, cancel the class you had in mind, work on Earl's proposal. So, no, really, and that's how you learn. We're going to brainstorm for Earl. He's not even here. He'll be surprised. Okay? But he knows the person. So I said, tell me about the person. Now, this is another thing. You have to know source, how would you say, profile? Which means you have to get to know the person you're going to make the presentation to. Like, don't go cold. You know, don't make them a pitch for, I don't know, helping prisoners and then find out that their aunt was murdered last week. You know, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta check out the source. You have to have a profile of this person. You have to at least take the trouble in advance to find out what are this person's interests? What are they in love with? What do they really hate? You know, like you might offer them the food that they hate the worst. I mean, go into it and find out. And I was telling someone today, the first grant we ever got for Asian Classics Input Project was from the owner of Hewlett-Packard. And we presented this project to him because we knew he was funding similar input of Greek. And he just refused to see us. He's too busy to see us. So we wrote up a one-page summary. We found out Lolly Gavisler worked a few blocks from his house. And then she went and handed it through the kitchen window to his wife. You know, something like that. But we studied him first, and we found out you can't meet him. He works all night. He sleeps during the day. He's like this very unusual guy. And they said, you can't get in, you know. So, but we checked him out. We found out what he enjoyed. And then the next day, he cancels all his appointments for the day, and he gives us an immediate grant of $40,000 in 1978. You know, like this was a lot of money at the time. And but you have to check out the source funding. So I said, Earl, tell me about this guy. I'm glad Earl's not here. It seems like this guy made a lot of money in Canada, and we can't exactly go into how he made his money. But I said, from what you're saying, it sounds to me like this guy. No, and then he began normal businesses and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, Earl, that you can't take money that maybe, if there's any question about money, don't take it. I mean, that's just a funding principle, you know? Like, we had somebody who was running a chain of liquor stores came and offered money. And then you can't, I mean, if it's something that's very harmful for people, you can't take the money, you know? But what we came down to finally was, there is some good money available, clean money, and I think the person should be doing something to do with prison work. Okay? I mean, something that would balance out this person's life, you know? And so it occurred to me that, you know, the more we talked about this potential sponsor, it became clear to me that if they did something to help people who had been in jail or people in prison, that it would be really beneficial for everybody, you know. So we checked out the source profile and we did that. Now, the next thing is, you got to have a proposal. And I don't want people going to Earl and telling him I said strange things, okay? That's not the point. The point is he knows somebody who might be interested in helping, a good thing. So now you got to work on how are you going to give a proposal to this person, you know? How are you going to present a proposal to this person? And then you have to start brainstorming. And my idea right here, right now, if we make a good proposal, and someone can help Earl type it. I don't know who. You know, we're all leaving in a couple days. But if I have a feeling that if he went back to Vancouver for the month, he could get a stipend that would help him work here. So we don't have any time, so why not do it right now? You know, we'll go over the parts of a proposal that I can tell you from experience people want to see. Okay, like. If you just go up to your friend and say, will you give me some money to help prisoners with ACI courses? They'll say no. But if you have a nice proposal, I want to say all the elements of a proposal that you need, okay? Number one, you got to have your idea, you know? You got to have your idea. And it has to be no more than 3 sentences at the top of a page, okay? I was talking to Jerry Dixon. He writes proposals often, right? Very successful businessman. And Angela, who's one of our students, is writing his proposals for him. And he says, the one thing I learned, Michael, no more than 1 page. No more than 1 page. People will stay with you for 1 page. You know, my experience is 3 sentences at the top. You got to be able to express what you want to sell. What is he going to sell? He's got to express it in 3 sentences. At the top. My idea for what he should sell comes from, what do you call it? There's a need, okay? There's a need. Which goes to my mind in a thing called angle. And I don't mean it in a bad way. There's a compelling need. We need some help with something. And you develop that into an angle. You see, like if you go to somebody and say, I want to open a bookstore in Tucson, they're like, yeah, well, so do 200 other people, you know? And then you say, yeah, but our bookstore's going to be Tibetan. Buddhist. They say, okay, well, now you're in with 50 people. And then you say, yeah, but we want to do Tibetan Buddhist books, and a lot of them we've already translated ourselves. Publisher says, well, now you're in 1 in 10, you know? And then you say, well, actually, it's not just selling the books, but we also have classes there at night. And we sit around a table, and people come in to browse for the books, and they end up sitting down on the table, and they end up taking the classes too, which is what happened in New York. Hundreds of people came to ACI classes that way. So we're going to have classes there. Oh, well, now you're 1 in 3, you know. And oh yeah, we're also going to have this outreach stuff where free internet access, because what is dividing people who can make it in the world nowadays from people who can't make it in the world nowadays is becoming increasingly skills on the computer and skills on the net, on the web. So in New York, we opened up free internet access for people who can't afford a computer, who can't afford anything. And then they're coming in there and they're working like to midnight on, hopefully on useful things, but no. But the idea is that they learn to use the web, and then they learn how to market something on the web or get a job on the web or things like that. Oh, well, now you're the only one in town doing that. And then you keep the angle, narrowing the angle to something that's really beneficial for other people. And then it becomes exciting, okay? In this case, our need, okay, and somebody should take all these notes for Earl and present to Earl, right? Our need, yeah. We have a particular need. We have an institute in New York, ACI, that provides free classes in Buddhism, but not necessarily Buddhism or religion, but sort of like meditation and life coping skills and attitude development skills, and all these for prisons. Like we supply them free to prisons, to prisoners. I think 60% of the courses that go out for free. Like there's a small thing where you can get these courses for free if you don't have money. 60 or 70% of those go to prisoners. And there's a huge community developing in the prisons of people who have taken the ISI courses. The problem is that costs $60 a prisoner per course. You know, so what that's doing to ACI is very difficult. You know, like people are running out of money. So for a long time, people like Winston, other people, they were just, here's a couple $100, keep it going. At one time, we were running it on a credit card, like an overdue credit card, was feeding all the prisoners in the United States who were taking these courses. Like we were going to shut it down the next day, and then one of the persons threw down their credit card and said, you know, do it, you know, don't shut it down. But this situation is still there. This is still a need, okay? So we have this situation where there are lots of prisoners who want these courses, and we don't have the money to send them all out, okay? Another thing is happening with the need. These prisoners write homeworks and quizzes and send them back to the people that send them the courses. And then theoretically, we have volunteers there ready, standing by to grade their papers. And the thing with prisoners is that they're so lonely. They're so dying for any kind of contact. And sometimes they're not allowed to write other letters, that they pour their hearts out. Like you'll get a 3-page homework and a 6-page letter, you know, attached to the back. And they just want somebody to tell them, how do I meditate? You know, I have this specific problem with my meditation, or I have this kind of ideas coming up, and do you think that's okay? And then we don't have people that have time from their regular work and their study and their practice. They don't have necessarily time to grade the papers and respond to the letters. So here you have COM. You have a guy available who wants to help people at risk. Then you have a sponsor available who would benefit from paying for prison work. Then you have a situation where we can't afford the materials to send it to them. And then you have a situation where we don't have enough people to correspond with all the prisoners. Sometimes they don't get a letter back for 6 weeks or months. So you see, so what's the picture developing for Earl? No, you get him a stipend. You get the guy a stipend to cover, oh, now we got to cover the stipend. Sorry, we got to cover the expenses. So what are we going to ask for money for? So far, what are we interested in asking for money for? Course materials. Okay.
Graded.
Let's start with course materials. So you got, yeah, course materials. And I'm sure Michael Moore will be very upset if he gets a letter from Earl that says, I can take over 100 courses or something like that. You see what I mean? So you got course materials. Then you have a stipend for a grader, right? And sort of what you could call a supervisor, maybe? Somebody to run it. And as you know, it'll be the same person. Also, the person who runs out to the post office is going to be the same person. I mean, that's how when you start your own little company, it goes like that, right? You know that. What else we need? This is all money, right? This is all money we're going to ask for.
Postage.
Postage, yeah, shipping costs.
Office space.
Yeah, someplace to work. Place to work. And there should be some communications, although with the web, that's not as important anymore. It used to be a huge cost. Like phone bills used to be really bad. But he's going to need some money for that. Anything else? Let's just brainstorm for it. We can present it to Earl. Huh?
What about somebody to respond to the personal letters, not just be the grader?
Oh, yeah, we'll do that. Personal responses.
Making the courses.
Oh, that's Diamond Mountain University. That's what we're going to do here, is make courses. Okay?
Reproducing the actual hard copies and tape.
Oh, like Xeroxing.
And tape copies or CDs.
Oh, yeah. This is the original materials, and this is the duplication, right? We'll just call it duplication.
Then you need equipment if you're going to duplicate.
Yeah, or what?
Kiko's.
Yeah, no, or what do you call it? What we found out in New York is, what do you call it? Vendors. Farm it out to a vendor. we were copying thousands and thousands of tapes. And we were copying tens of thousands, millions of pages of notebooks for people in the classes. So finally this Pakistani guy opens up a Xerox place across the street. And we went over in there and we said, well, you want all our business? And he said, oh yes, I mean, great, you know. And so he said, okay, look, if you can come within 10% of what it costs us to do it ourselves, you know, then we'll just send people to you. And you do it. And can you do tapes? I'll do the tapes at home. My cousin can do 10, you know. Okay. And yeah, you know, and can you do it for like 15% of the cost of the tapes? Within 15% of the cost of tapes? Yeah, yes, I can do, you know. And I think for a long time, for like a year, he did all of them. We just sent people over to him. And then there's none of this headache and stuff like that. I'm not talking charging. I'm talking if you had to do it yourself, or this Pakistani guy and all his cousins do it with staying up there all night in their own photocopy business, which makes them a lot of money. So find people to farm it out to. You know, don't think you have to do it all yourself. I mean, you go to the 3 Xerox places in this area. I heard there's one in Benson and or some, you know, who's going to lose our business because we moved to this new land. And you just say, do you want so many $1,000 of business per year? Can you get the copies like 3/4 of what they normally cost for us? And then you make some kind of a deal like that. So those are all the, anything else as far as money he's going to need? If you don't think of it, he's going to get stiffed, right?
Transportation.
That's another thing about writing a proposal. You got to think everything ahead of time because it's hard to go back later. Yeah, he's going to need some kind of a car, right? Transpo. This also, you got to include, it's usually good to be able to go straight to the sponsor city and talk to them face to face. I mean, you don't usually do very well by mail. You got to think of sponsors that you can reach by car or, you know, or a short plane flight. For us, I think LA is a good resource maybe. Tucson's okay. Phoenix, I don't get a feeling for Phoenix. Like there's money there, but they're not so, maybe so, I don't know how to say it. I grew up there, but that's another story.
You might need a computer.
I think it'd be a great idea to have a computer, yeah. Laptop, a computer. I think, well, you're going to need it for emailing and stuff like that, at least. Did you have something?
Business clothes?
Business what?
Clothes.
You know,
Just that one outfit.
yeah, one outfit, you're right. Like this one here, closest I could come. One outfit. You just have to hope they don't ask you back for 3 days in a row. It's happened. I think one outfit is a good idea.
One pair of pants and three shirts.
Yeah, you can fake it, right? I think so. Now, what I thought was to just work this out to do it now, real life proposal, you know. Where is he going to get these numbers? Where is it all going to? This one, where is he going to get the information about course materials and stuff?
Yeah, Michael and Bonnie Moore.
Michael and Bonnie Moore. Like he's got to be in touch with Michael and Bonnie Moore, okay? And again, there's a political thing here, which he has to present the idea to them that he's going to be going and asking somebody for money to do what they're doing for free, you know, for him. And it's just cool up front. It's, what do you call it, graceful? Gracious up front to go to them and say, Michael had this idea that he thought maybe I could do this or take some of the load off you for these prison courses. And I was going to approach a friend of mine that I know from the time he was young. He's known this guy. And I have like a maybe 20% chance he might do it. And by the way, 20% chance is his opportunity. That's great. You know, if you ever have been in competitive grant writing, like for any age, the odds are about 1 in 3,000. So if you think there's a 20% chance the guy might do it, that's an opportunity. You know, that's a good opportunity. And then Nagudup, right? Nagudup, which is what? You're going to get doors slammed in your face a certain percent of the time. And you got to get used to that, okay? Stipend for grader. Well, let's say, he's got to find out what's the how many prisoners are getting courses right now per month? Okay? What's the average per month? How many prisoners per month are getting courses? And what's it costing them what's the cost to duplicate those courses and to send them out?
And what's the return rate? I mean, they may be sending them and not getting anything back.
How do you mean?
Oh,
yeah.
50 binders and you get 48 back, that's great, but if you get 10,
You mean homeworks back and stuff like that? Yeah.
you might want to be able to tell the sponsor that we've got this really excellent return.
Yeah, meaning participation rate.
Participation.
Yeah, that's good. Anything you can tell the sponsor is really good. Like participation rate would be good. That goes into, we'll do that in presentation. Because that's a whole nother thing, which we'll get to. Then Earl's got to figure out stipend, which he's got to figure out how many hours a week he's going to work on this, how many hours a week he wants to work on this, right? And then he's got to figure out what his own monthly expenses are. And then he's got to ask for a decent rate. And what happens with most people is you underestimate. You know, since you're out asking somebody for help, you tend to underestimate. And that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody. What happens is you get tired, you get stressed out financially, then you get grumpy, and then you're not you're writing grumpy letters to the prisoners after a while. And then you're starting to complain about this job you have that you built for yourself. And you start blaming the sponsor or anybody else because you don't have a boss to complain at, right? A fair stipend, yeah.
Somebody told me they wanted to sponsor him. So actually,
great.
He has $200 a month offered, but he doesn't know it.
Well, let's do it as if I were in charge of the organization you're describing, I would make it a grant in exchange for specific services.
He doesn't, they don't want to know. They don't want him to know who it is.
He doesn't have to know who it is. Diamond Mountain is willing to sponsor $200 a month of your prison project. If you can match it from your friend or,
Yeah.
What we learned about giving away money is don't give away money. Give somebody a challenging thing that helps other people. But what we found out from helping Tibetan refugees for 20 years is if we just sent them money, they would just spend whatever it was in a month. Doesn't matter if it's $5 or $5,000. A human being will spend it in a month if you just give it to them. And maybe I'm starting to sound Republican now, but that's okay. This part I agree with the Republicans. I pretty much agree. But if you give them some challenging work that they know helps people, that they know is meaningful, and that they have to work hard at, and that they can become the boss of, and that real people are sending them letters and saying, you really helped me, and they have to put in a hard day's work, and they go home feeling excited about it. I think that's really good, there should be people who give away money. If I was wealthy, you got to have some kind of, what do you call it?
Exchange of value.
Yeah. The person has to get a feeling. What I'm saying is welfare is a really bad thing. Just to give someone money and say, we won't ask you what you do. Nobody will get excited whether you do a good thing or a bad thing. I went to Russia, Soviet Union, a few months after it fell. And we tried to get people excited in doing this project, and they didn't know, they couldn't conceive of it. They couldn't conceive of any kind of pride in your work or excitement about what you're doing. Or they were just like, I got this position 36 years ago from the KGB to work in this library. And I'm just supposed to be here. And I don't produce anything. I'm just here. And we were trying to get them, come on, we'll get these books input, we'll get the, and they're like, and then finally they got excited, but it took so long. What I mean is a person doesn't feel self-worth unless they're challenged. And 90% of the population is under-challenged. It's not that people don't enjoy their work, it's that it's not challenging. So the idea is to get people challenged. Don't tell them they got a stipend until they've done you a nice proposal and committed to so many prisoners per month and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Seriously. Which is my suggestion. Or make them get a matching. Okay. Stipend per grader. You usually don't want to start out with employees, okay? usually don't try to write into a grant that you're going to have 3 employees or something. I think anyone in here who's ever started a business, you'll be spending 6 hours a day on federal reports about, whatever you can imagine. We once applied to the federal government for a grant. It was 4,000 pages of applications. And we got the grant. We were the only non-university that got the grant 2 years in a row. And then we just can't, it's not worth the time. What I mean is that there are a lot of requirements for employees that you don't want to deal with until you get strong. Better to just have yourself working or 2 friends or something like that. Don't think in terms of hiring somebody through the newspaper or stuff. You don't want to get into Social Security and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying you should avoid it, because we know you can't avoid it if you want to make money. You have to be totally 100% ethical and honest. But avoid it in the sense of don't get into drains on your resources until you are strong enough to handle that drain, and until you have steady work and steady income, okay? In other words, you don't do anything until you have a demand for it that will support it, okay? And that goes for Diamond Mountain too. I mean, you don't build a thing until your last building is bursting. Until there's 5 people outside waiting to get in because it's full, then you don't build your new building, I mean, basically, unless you know there's 100 coming or something like that, but that's a different thing. But just a general principle is that you don't create overhead until you have a over-demand for it. You see what I mean? Okay. So he's going to determine his own stipend. Then shipping, he gets from Michael Moore, right? Place to work means in his proposal, he already indicates that he has a place to work, and he has photos of it maybe ready to show the sponsor. Okay, so the person knows he's got a real place to work. As far as I'm concerned, if it were me and if Diamond Mountain approves, I would say, he could have a corner of someplace here to work on prison stuff. Communications expenses. What will his internet access cost? And he's going to have a certain amount of long-distance phone calls and stuff like that. Why? A lot of times prisons aren't up to date. They aren't linked to the internet. You have to call a chaplain in Virginia at a prison that they don't allow tapes because people send razor blades inside the boxes and stuff like drugs. And so he's got to be able to call somebody who's not interneted to say, what are your requirements for me sending this prisoner? Why can't this prisoner get this course? Or like for example, you can't send notebooks because they use the binder rings for knives and stuff. So he'll have to find out in advance what kind of communications we're talking about. Phone bills. And phone bills can kill you, although what I think is really healthy for a person like Earl is to get them used to using the internet and not using a phone. Okay. Transportation around here, you got to have a car. Minimum insurance, gas. What's it cost a year to run a car? Computer, what we found is getting refurbished computers off the web is fine. Really good. $300 for a $2,500 computer. And they last for a couple of years and they're okay. So it's 3 years old. It's okay. Again, if you're in a position like Earl's and you're just starting up, you could go beg used computers off of a place like Diamond Mountain. You could say, look, you got an old used computer that nobody's using. And we do. And almost everybody does. So you don't go out and buy a $3,400 laptop and you don't budget for that. By the way, the more austere you can appear to your sponsor, the more willing they are to sponsor you, usually. If you can impress on a sponsor that you're really trying to save money and not waste money. So you don't go at the beginning and say, I need a new Pentium ZX laptop for $4,800. Build it into your budget or something like that. You don't do that. You say, we're running on a shoestring, and you say honestly, we're using used computers, and I just need enough to keep it running for another year for this grant. One outfit, right? Frankly, your personal appearance is about 80% of when you show up. And what I've normally found, again, you have to suss out the person. Like, for example, we were trying to get a school built for the children in the refugee camp, Tibetan refugee camp in Belakopi. And we were trying to get a water system. So I was introduced to the overseas assistance work of the United Church of Christ in New York City, their headquarters. And this guy, you had to have a suit when you went in, right? And they, on the spot, they gave us the water system, right? And later they gave us the school on the spot. And later they funded half the children at Sarah May School are being funded by them. Like really nice grant, like that, you know. Then they changed supervisors. And I still wore my suit to the next meeting. But the new supervisor was a radical feminist who had gotten grants for Korean fish, to disrupt Korean fishing and labor unions, or something like that. And the minute she saw my suit, the grant was down the tubes. So you gotta check out your sponsor in advance, you know? And what's the right outfit for one might be the wrong outfit for the other. And you have to check that out, right? But he knows, he's a friend of his, right? Yeah, there's a mousey. Don't worry. Okay. So those are all the things he'll come up with a monthly thing of a couple $1,000s. And it'll be way too much. Then you start cutting. You just say, we can't do this, you know. And that's just the way life goes. You don't ask for a $25,000 grant the minute you meet somebody. It just doesn't work that way, okay? So what I like to suggest is sometimes present it as a seed grant. And what you do here is you ask for 3 months or 4 months. You know, you don't ask for a year. You say, this is what we need to get it going. And then if after 2 of the 3 months is over, I'll send you a report, or I'll come and make a report to you. And if you like it, then you keep me going, okay? So what that puts you in a position with a lot of people is that you're approaching them for a $1,000 grant for a thing that costs $20,000 a year or something. You know what I mean? But you start them with the $1,000, and then you come and show them real results. And then they say, okay, I believe you now. Because a lot of the process of asking for grants or sponsorships is trust. They have to build up faith in you and trust in you. And you have to build that up slowly. So you start with a seed grant. So you tell Earl, you know, I would say don't ask for more than $3,000. Something like that. No matter who it is.
Is there a geographical area that...
Oh, about the prisoners?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that now. Okay. Let's talk about a profile. Or how do you... I shouldn't say profile. What should I say? You can say profile. But I mean, how are you going to present the prisoners? You see? Because the guts of this project is, to me, the guts of this project, and Debbie Bai can tell you, it's the personal response from prisoners, you know? It's like knowing that a guy's in prison for life. And then he writes you this 12-page letter that says, you saved my life, you know? Like, I've been sitting in this prison for the last 18 years, and I haven't done anything meaningful with my life. And then I got your courses. I got the ACI courses. And I finished 12 of them, you know? And now my life has some meaning. And I'm incredibly grateful. And to tell you the truth, we had the problem of the prisoner costs getting out of hand years ago, like 5-6 years ago. And we contacted Harrison Ford's wife. And she actually came, and we had a long meeting. And we had like 12 letters, 15 letters ready to show her from prisoners, like real letters, you know, that she could check it out with the prisons, you know, like she could, here's the phone number of the chaplain in the Kentucky State prison system who's really excited about the ACI courses. And here's the name of the 12 prisoners who have written letters. And so get the letters ready. And those he has to get from John Stillwell, ACI in New York, and from the Moores, and from Mark Minervini in New York, who've been handling the prisoners for the last 4 years, 5 years, okay? And then you have real letters. But I'll tell you what did it more than anything is what? Photos. There's nothing like photos. I mean, if there's one trick to getting a sponsor, to help you. It's photos. If you go in with no budget, no description, no history, no organization, no tax exempt number, no follow-up program, no board, but if you go in with photos, that's like 80% already. Just some great photos, And Annie Pelma can help him with that. And the people that Annie Pelma knows from the New York State prison system that we helped. And we have photos of our people standing outside of these really horrible bars with machine gun nests up here, and we have nice photos like that. What's even more powerful now is video, if you can get it. This can be useful in a presentation on your computer. Like you go in, you open up your computer, that's when the battery dies usually. But I've given a proposal at the Library of Congress, and you just open the computer and you press a few buttons, and there the pictures are popping up. And they went for it. And we became their official organizers for all their Tibetan purchases for the last 10 years, have been directed from Worldview. Because we went to the office in New Delhi, we sold it, the idea of purchasing books from Tibetans, and they went for it. And now it's sent to 18 American libraries, and they're still working off the list that we made 10 years ago. They're still purchasing the books that we listed 10 years ago. And then they go to like 18 American libraries. But the pitch was done off a laptop that ran out of battery halfway through. But just to have something to show, like you have photos on the laptop and stuff like that. So photos are 90% of the job, Real letters and photos from people. Then some kind of, to me, it's statistics. How many courses have you actually sent out to prisoners in the last 3 years? What prisons? How many states? You asked me about profile or area. It's US, Canada, and we're also doing prisons in Australia and New Zealand, I think, from the US. So it's very impressive as far as... now his sponsor's Canadian, so we might want to look into specifically helping in Canada more. Like he'll want to try to expand the program in maybe the sponsor's country, which is Canada, right? And we don't care. We're just trying to help prisoners anywhere. And I would get there's a audio of His Holiness. Central Park. You get the audio. Central Park 2000, 1999? Yeah. And in there he makes a pitch for helping prisoners. He says that American Buddhists should help prisoners. Because, and he gives a real juicy thing. And I'd have it pop up on the computer and His Holiness is saying, we need to help prisoners, and this is how prisoners feel. And we shouldn't make them, he gives them this long, impassioned talk about how we shouldn't make prisoners feel like second-class citizens. Like, if you treated prisoners like real people, if you really treated them like pen pals, if you, with respect, sent them courses, and with respect, graded their courses, then you wouldn't have a bunch of criminals coming out of the prisons when their time is up, Then there'd be some progress, But right now what you do is you take a criminal and you put him in a prison, and then 3 years later he's a much worse criminal, and then you let him go. So I think it'd be really cool. Like, you got to brainstorm, like what we're doing right now, like brainstorming. I should write brainstorming. Brainstorming. Now, I wanted to do a thing called participation. The first sponsor for Godspell Retreat Center, who offered us $25,000 a year for 10 years, we had her up washing dishes at the first retreat, at Godspell. Like, we had her up in the retreat, and she asked to be anonymous, And so nobody knew who she was, but she was up there cooking and washing dishes at the first retreat. And she loved it because she's got to be this anonymous participant in the program she's sponsoring. You know, and actually she came back with us a lot of suggestions on improving it, you know, which can also be helpful, you know. But, you know, and you would consider it sort of risky to have your sponsor sitting there in the middle of your first few events with their money, anonymous. Like, people might say something weird or do something weird, but what it does is it builds up trust. Then they really trust you, because they smell after a while that you haven't told anybody who they are. And they get excited. If it's a good program, then they get excited. So participation, in my mind, means, is there a way to get the friend with money to get involved? You see? This is really crucial for a proposal. This leads to long-term, healthy, happy, contented sponsors, you know? They are grading 20 papers a week, you know? They're actually going to a prison to make a presentation. They're actually licking the stamps on, and to be honest, something you might not realize, really wealthy people, or even just upper medium income people who are also very good sponsors, they just want some company. They're lonely. A lot of times wealthy people are lonely because people only want to know them for their money, and they don't want to, you see? They can't come and volunteer at the soup kitchen because the minute they show up, there's 20 people who want them to sponsor something new. And if you can find a way to get a sponsor into the trenches, you know, into the front line of the work, you're much more likely to keep it going, because then they get invested. It's like an investment. So if there's any way Earl can build in, at the time of the proposal, a way in which the sponsor can do anything with their hands on the project, then you'll be surprised at how many people who want to give money away want friendship. And they want, and a lot of time the friendship is limited to an award dinner once a year or a plaque, and that's not the kind of friendship they want. They want, like Pelma was so good at this. Like, she always developed, this is the person who founded the Three Jewels in New York, the outreach center. She always developed a true personal interest and friendship with the sponsor, even when they gave up sponsoring. You know, I mean, the test was that after they gave up sponsoring, for years they would go on this sweet relationship where she'd be having them out to dinner, making them a nice dinner, or walking their dogs together, or funny stuff. But it's a personal investment with the sponsor, you know. That's participation on the sponsor side. And then I think, where would he find out places in Canada to spread the prison project? How could he find that out? Huh? Say again? Annie Kinzom? Yeah. But there's Robina Cortina, right? Like, she's got this huge prison project going. And there's another prison project which you should note down. What was that called? Who told us about that? David Swenson, the yoga teacher, told us about that. And you can contact him. It's called the Human Kindness Foundation. And it used to be called the Prison Ashram Project. And he provides free videos to them because he's so impressed with their work. You know? So, like, the idea is to link up with people who are already doing prison work. So there's the FPMT has at least 3 or 4 prison projects going. And instead of competing, you know, you join forces, like you collaborate. And that's much better. That's much more exciting for everybody, you know? You don't push your courses only. You say, what can we do together? You know, we want to branch out in Canada. We know you have 20 prisoners in Canada. You know, can we help out? Or can we have their names and we'll send them free courses or something like that, you know? And work with people who already got projects going. And then Debbie Bai already has a project going. She's already doing it here at Diamond Mountain. So obviously, Earl should work with you and start, you know, what can he do what can you guys do together? If he's doing correspondence courses all over the U.S., and you're concentrating on live prisoners here in southern Arizona, is there some collaboration you could do together? You know, like, could his work, could a volunteer who's teaching in the prisons in southern Arizona get a stipend to also help with the mailing out prison materials for the whole country or internationally? You see, could you two work in the same office together and then share resources? And then I think if he gets an opportunity, which is what our subject is tonight, you know, if an opportunity came up, we canceled the real class tonight. You jump on an opportunity. You don't let an opportunity go by. Somebody mentions something at a dinner meeting, you jump on it. Like, we had dinner with a gentleman the other evening who mentioned that he might want to give 10 four-person tents to Diamond Mountain that are brand new. He's buying them for a party he's having. He doesn't know what to do with them afterwards. And so you just jump on it. Like, we had a letter to him, right? Immediately, you know. And you just hear small things. And then opportunity is really important. So are there places for collaboration? I think there's the useless collaboration and there's the useful collaboration. Useless collaboration is when, you know, like two groups get together and write a proposal to raise $10 million for Tibetan input for the next 10 years or something. And you know there's not $10 million in the whole world that would be spent on this. And you make a lot of expensive materials and then there's no result. And I mean, that's not going to work out. What you're looking for is real people who are already doing it real. You know, it's not like pipe dream. You know what I mean? It's like, we know Robina's got something going that's real. We know Debbie's got something going that's real. And then you try to collaborate with people who have real things going. I don't suggest collaboration in the sense of, I mean, joint grants get hard to manage and hard to do the finances, hard to do the accounting, hard to decide when the grant comes in, who's going to get what. And I wouldn't get into those kind of problems. You got to have some kind of, the whole idea of a do-gooder company was that you were self-employed, right? And you had sort of authority over your own project. And that's sort of a selling point for most people who've ever had a job that can't be denied. Like, you don't want to give that up easily from the beginning. But I think the sharing concepts openly and really helping out each other is really important. Anything more about, I had an idea about and then we'll take a break, product. What are some of the problems, Debbie, that they have in prisons? Do you know? With the product, like with courses.
One big problem is availability, getting availability to the materials that have been put into the prison.
Yeah, availability.
Sometimes due to prejudice, religious prejudice.
Yeah. A lot of times a Buddhist course a lot of times, 99% of chaplains are Christian. And so you're going to have to address availability. And sometimes that requires some, what do you call it? I don't want to say aggressive, but you have to keep writing letters to the prison and say, you know, the prisoners have a right to the access to these materials if they want them. You know, not that we're coming in and we're not being missionary, and that's not our thing. We don't allow that in our tradition, and that's not the idea. But if we send something to the prison library, can the guys or girls actually get permission to go use it? Okay. Then there's a thing about safety, or what do they call it? What's the polite euphemism for that? Security. Yeah.
Like at the Douglas prison, in one of the sections, the medium security section, there was a problem with the tape cases. It was okay if they were clear, but if they were opaque, it wasn't so good.
Yeah, opaque versus clear tape cases. And one thing I wanted to say for Earl, like, if you walk into a sponsor and you say that the clear box tape blanks cost $36.27 a hundred, and The opaque ones cost $27. You know, if you know your stuff like that, you know, then the sponsor's like, this guy knows what he's doing, you know, this guy cares. And this guy's done his research, you know. Yeah, so that's security as far as hiding razor blades and drugs in the tape boxes as they come into the library. So I'd say, like, look into CDs. You know, the courses are coming out on CD now. But do they have a player? You know? So maybe the sponsor can sponsor the equipment. Do they allow that kind of thing? Like, can a sponsor equipment, like computers or a boombox or something like that?
Yeah, we've already done that.
Yeah.
Yoga mats and cushions, this sort of thing.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, everybody helped.
Well, so part of the thing is, could the sponsor other stuff? Because if you're sitting there in prison for a 10-year term, and someone takes the time to, you know, if you know someone has taken the care not only to get you a tape, but a tape player, and a cushion to sit on, to meditate, and stuff like that, it really means a lot to a person in a 3-year yurt or a prison, okay? Annie Pelma called the yurts the spiritual prisons. But anyway. What else about the product? I have an idea that I'll ask you, and I don't know if it's true. I asked Alan Baer. That's another thing. Go around and ask people who've worked in prisons. I don't know if you know that Alan Baer has worked in prisons for many years and still does as a physician, free physician and psychotherapy. So he flies back to Santa Cruz every 6 months to do his 2 weeks in the prison nearby Santa Cruz. But in talking to him, and my experience in New York State is, what kind of courses are most appropriate? What feeling do you have for what courses are most appropriate to start with? Dharma publisher donation. As far as I know, Snowline, Wisdom, and even MSTP under certain circumstances will give you
and,
books.
Lama Yeshe was
Yeah. You got all those, right? So that's 4 or 5. They will donate books. Like a lot of times, they'll get shipped books which are damaged, and they won't notice it for the 2 weeks that they have a damage report, and then they don't know what to do with the book. And there was a law recently that hurt the nonprofits a lot, which is that you can't store books. You have to pay tax on the books that you store. So like you have to move them. And so a lot of Dharma publishers are really interested in giving away. Also, I think, find ways to lower the price of the product to the prisons, right? I mean, if you get it on CDs rather than tapes, and if they have a player, then it's a lot cheaper than shipping tapes and stuff like the boxes. But I'd also say you'd want to identify the courses that are most popular in the prisons. You know what we're going to do with this? We're going to go for like another 15 minutes and then just stop, rather than having a break, because we're almost at, it's coming up on 9. But identify the most popular courses. Alan felt, having been, tried, he felt Tonglen was very good.
Yeah, I've been pushing Tonglen.
Is that, what'd you say?
I've been pushing that a lot, doing meditations with them, because that's a really helpful thing.
He said more than written study, that Tonglen and just meditation instruction in general, he found is like the most appreciated thing in a prison.
It really helps them cope with life their families missing and stuff.
Yeah, things that help you cope with being in a prison long term. And I think Thanksgiving meditations can be very powerful. But I think they get you out of this feeling that everyone hates you and that you never had anything good happen in your life and things like that. So I think courses like that, identify the most popular courses.
One thing is packaging the product.
in
Packaging.
the sense that collaboration with, I don't know, say a Tucson bookstore. Because you can't get stuff in prisons, people will not be able to send stuff to prison. They'll buy a book at the store and they can't send it. But if it
Yeah.
comes directly from a bookstore with permission from the prison,
Good.
so sometimes you can just package it that way by collaborating with a local bookstore that will be able to get it in there in the first place.
Yeah. What Allison's saying is that sometimes a commercial institution, a commercial
Yeah,
outlet is allowed to send things that
certain things.
a private person wouldn't be allowed to send because security, I assume. Yeah.
They're allowed a certain number of communications sometimes. So for certain prisoners, they can't get stuff from anywhere else. But if it's a bookstore, anything religious,
Yeah.
often you can get it through before anyone else can, either from a church or from a bookstore itself, especially if it's of a religious nature.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And I think, although the prisons that we've been working with in Arizona, I saw the guidelines, they discourage any kind of advocacy for the prisoners. But from the point of view of making sure that they have equal access to the materials that other prisoners have to their religion's materials, I think that's just something that is, I think, is assumed that Earl might have to be able to learn that skill. Like I know when we dealt with prisons in Virginia and North Carolina, we had to actually work with the superintendent of the prison system for the whole state to get ourselves recognized as having the right to present materials in the prisons. There's also a guy in North Carolina, who is that? The big guy who's working in the prison there.
Just email me. I have Zoom.
Talk to Ellie, but there's a guy in North Carolina who's been doing ACI courses in prisons there for quite a while. What's his name? Herb Cunningham. Yeah, with maximum security. I mean, lifers only prison. Very heavy, and he's been doing great work there. What else does he need to know? I'm just going over it kind of fast because I want him to jump on this opportunity before he gets there in July.
Rachel, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Originally, I thought that you had said that the thing that he was interested in was working with especially teenagers who are at risk.
Yeah.
So is this jumping on an opportunity for something that is real, that is already happening, so
Yeah.
that he can continue to develop, so that he can then get sponsorship for, say, working with teens?
Yeah, I think he can go to his TrueCom later on,
Okay.
which is a principle. Sometimes you have to settle for almost your com. And that's just life. The sponsor who presents themselves is not interested in at-risk work for teenagers, but they happen to be interested in prison programs. So you start with that, you build up a reputation, and then what's called bait and switch? No. Not really, but it's a virtuous kind. What's it called?
Segue.
Segue? Okay. Anyway, once the sponsor trusts you and believes in what you're doing, then you can concentrate on. I'm not sure what that he's particularly only cares about teens, but I know that's what he's been doing for a few years before that. Another idea is that we're going to be heavy in Vancouver during the tour, and as of today, especially for the Chinese community in Vancouver. So there might be some chance that there'll be like 10 or 15 teachers in Vancouver at any given time that could go to a prison locally and teach heart yoga during the tour or something, connection to the prisons in heart yoga. I wanted to talk briefly, we're almost out of time, but financial reporting. And recording is maybe even the key. When you get into the business of asking other people for their hard-earned money, right, you got to be able to account for it perfectly. So from the first moment, Earl should be in touch with Ted Lemon about an accounting program which is free, and easy to use. And from the first moment that he licks the stamp and puts it on the letter, That's 37 cents now. I forget. It's changed a lot in 3 years. That expense should be typed into his program every night. I mean, the last half hour of his work, of any kind of work on this project, every day, is type in the expenses that you spent that day.
I called Ted today and researched that because he
Yeah?
asked me to, so
Yeah.
I could tell
Yeah.
her about it.
She's got it because she's working on a different project. She's got her own SAO already going. And I said, I ain't helping you a day more until you got accounting going from the beginning. Because you were all throwing in our own money at this point, so you might as well have an accounting of it. You can say to the sponsor, we've thrown in $3,000 already. And you can show them their financial report. What'll happen at the beginning is you start throwing in your own money. Your friends say, oh, I'll pay for that $20 thing, you know, and then if you can go to a sponsor and say, 30 people have already spent $3,000 on this project. So from the first day, start recording expenses, any expenses, and any tiny thing that someone sponsors. Because what a sponsor likes to hear is that 5 other people are already on the bandwagon. Sponsors love bandwagons. It's very hard to get a sponsor on a new project. It's very hard to get the first sponsor. But once you got 10 sponsors, everyone wants to be on your bandwagon, So I think financial reporting and recording is really, really essential. And I think anybody who's interested in being a servant of the world should be able to keep books for themselves from the first day. And it's not very pleasant, it's not very fun, but you'll like it later. I'll give you an example. When we did the St. Petersburg project to save Tibetan books in Russia, there was a young lady who came and we hired her to be an assistant. She's still in Howell. She's one of the elder students there. I won't mention her name. And she was hired, I think it was 6 hours a day or something. And I said, are you going to keep your own books? She said, yeah, I'll keep the books. I said, are you going to pay your own employment taxes? She says, I'll take care of the taxes. And we found a volunteer in California who was an accountant, who's a sister of an elder student in Howell. But anyway, so I said, okay, this thing's all taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. 5 years later, the state of New Jersey is sending me bills for this lady's taxes. And I paid them for 5 years. And I paid thousands and thousands of dollars in back taxes that they didn't quite get sent in. And getting them off my back, trying to convince them that I had let this person go after this certain date, and they can't bill me past that date, But I was getting bills for years, and I couldn't get the computer to stop sending me bills. And then I got collection agencies coming and trying to collect money, and then calling, senior people in Howell. It starts with a K, ends with an R. And no, it's very embarrassing, and it's very bad, and it costs the project thousands of dollars. And don't trust keep a good eye on your own books. Be accountable. And your own sponsor will want to know that you are accountable. And I think online books, it's a new idea. We call it open books. Open book. Open book, what are you going to call it? Open book program?
There isn't a free one available right now that Ted said that works with Windows, but he said there's a system called Quicken, which is only about $50 currently to get yourself, so he suggested that.
Yeah. What I really want to develop, what I really want to see in the South is you have your books on your computer and your sponsor can call in any time to check your books. They have a password to call into your computer. Your computer's left on, and your sponsor has a password, and they could call in any time and see exactly how many dollars you spent today. And there should even be a feature on their money. You see, because if you got 5 sponsors, the book should be run in such a way that your sponsor can call in and see that their money, the $5,000 they gave, is being spent on this stuff today and this week. What do you call it? Automatically. They don't have to call you. They don't have to ask for a financial report. They can see it on your books anytime they want to call in. I think that's a goal for Sal. It institutes a level of integrity that once you get known for that, then sponsors really happy to sponsor you. You know, my money, my specific money, went to buy Winston iced tea this afternoon in Bowie on his way to the post office. You know, and I know he spent 69 cents or $1.69 or whatever it is now on a, you know, I like that. Having sponsored many projects in Sarah, in India, there are certain groups that just give you, like we spent $20,000 on the first part of the school building a long time ago, and the guy who does the books, he puts in if they have bought mangoes for the laborers. You know, it's like 13 cents for mangoes for laborers because it was a hot day, and it's in the books, and it's in, and you can check it, and you know how everything has been spent. I think that's like a key, recording what you spent, and then the power to report it honestly. And honesty is like, if you're going to be a servant of the world, it has to be 100% integrity. You know, you have to be able to account to the penny what you spent, and avoid temptation to use it for other stuff you need or stuff like that. You know, it's hard, and you have to do it. Last thing I think is write into the proposal some kind of feedback. This is a great weakness of mine. I've started like 50 projects, right? Some of them are still healthy, you know. I mean, the success rate is good. But I'm really bad at getting back to sponsors before the money runs out. When the money runs out, I'm back, right? But 3 months, every 3 months, every month, every 6 months, you need a formal report to your sponsor. A one-pager is fine, with lots of photos. Okay, lots of photos. Like we got a very large grant. It was almost $1 million from a certain foundation in New York, and we just kept going. We'd go every month. We'd take them back out to lunch, and we'd just, you know, they'd be eating a tortilla in this Shishi Village restaurant in New York, and they'd have a one-page report of our project with photos on it and financial summary, and they were like really happy. And I think on Saturday you're going to see, for Diamond Mountain, is sending out like a 8-page report to everyone who helped with the 3-year retreat. You know, and there's 3 pages of photos, there's the newspaper article, there's a financial summary of what was spent and how much was left or not. And what's cool about that particular project is that the income matches the expenses, meaning it didn't overspend. You know, there was a small funds left over, if I'm almost. Yeah, I mean, the project was run responsibly, and at the end there's a tiny amount left, and everybody's happy. There's no debts, we don't have to bother anybody, we don't have to beg for money. It was income, was Elila, like very responsibly accounted for the income and generated the income, and then the expenses were accounted for, and we are in a position to give them a real financial report and say, you did a good job, and it's over. I mean, sponsors really like to hear that. You know, it's over. The project I came to you for help with, which was a $3,000 project, has spent $2,998. Here's the last $2. What you spent your money on is successful. Here's the photos. You know, here's the accounting. Here's the final report. And sponsors never get that. Like 99% of the people who accept money from a sponsor, they just take it. And then they either never respond or they only come back when they need money, and sponsors don't like that. You know, they don't like that. But to go and say, here's my final report, it was a huge success. Here's some publicity that was, you know, try to get some publicity for what you did, you know, and say, here it is, here's my report. And then they feel like closure. It's closure. People want to feel closure, you know. I paid for this project, and then give them something they can show their friends. You know, like the next time they're out to lunch with their wealthy friend. And we did this with the second most wealthy lady in America. She was helping us in St. Petersburg. And we had her out with the founder of the New York Times, the daughter of the founder of the New York Times, and she's like showing off her pictures, Here's the library, here's the Tibetan monks working there, here's the discs that have gone out to thousands of people around the world, And the lady is like jealous. She's like, now she wants to get into this project, and give them something they can show to their friends, Like they want to feel like, and I'm not talking about cheap plaques and dinners and stuff. I don't like that. Here's a real photo album of the real stuff that was done with your money that really helped people, And then and then I've noticed one of the first sponsors of Diamond Mountain, every time I've gone to their house, the book is still there. The original presentation book is still there. They've obviously used it often and shown it to people often. And I think that's, feedback is really good. Like if you've ever given money for a project, and then never heard back from anybody, ever. There's no photo of the finished stupa that they asked money for. There's nothing, They just asked for money. We sponsored, for example, a very expensive, it was a very expensive project to sponsor something in an overseas stupa project. And we didn't get a response after sending in a $15,000 thing that we had made for that. We didn't get a response for 6 months. We didn't even get a response that said we received it, for 6 months. And and that's just shouldn't be like that. I mean, they should. If you ever sponsored something and then you just don't get an answer, or nobody ever says thank you. Here's what you did. Thank you. It's very discouraging, and then you're not very excited about doing it again. So it's not in a bad way. It's just honorable to thank somebody and to give them a final report and like that. One last thing on financial. Most sponsors will ask if you have tax exemption and can they get a tax break. And you should be ready before you walk in to give them the real info. You should either be ready to walk in and say, no, we're not tax exempt. But what's much more desirable is that you have done some kind of collaboration with your prison project to some kind of tax exempt. In this area, for example, Friends of Tibet in Tucson, is it called like that? Like they've offered to do stuff with us when we needed a tax exemption and we didn't have one locally. So you can collaborate with people like your project. The funds from the second wealthiest lady in the world who wants to remain anonymous came to the Maurice Pate Institute because she didn't want it to be listed on her taxes that the money was being spent for X purposes, for political reasons, for international political reasons. So you can get tax exemption collaborations with people who already have a 501c3, and then Earl's got to check it out for Canada. As far as I know, if a Canadian sponsors a project in the U.S., they don't get a tax exemption in Canada. And even if an American sponsors something that's done overseas, like we had to get an IRS decision for MSDC. We spent 2 years to get an IRS ruling that we could send money to Sarah and people could get a tax exemption. So, you want to get those papers ready before you walk into a sponsor. Like, if Earl can flip out a government document from the IRS that says, we're very happy that you're doing this project and of course it's tax exempt. Then the sponsor's like, and to tell you the truth, since Reagan's time, you don't get much. It used to be substantial. Like I didn't pay taxes for 2 years because I gave away all the money. And then after Reagan's time, there was a limit put on it. And you can't get much exemption, but it's nice to be able to offer it. And so you should be ready to do that. And then I think at the end is some kind of rejoicing, rejoicing. And the 10% principle. If you rejoice in something, then the power of it is like much greater. So take the person out for that final dinner, show them the results. And then what I do, and what I think you should do, keep up a friendship with them, even if you never intend to ask them again for money. because what you've done together is some kind of virtuous thing. It's a good thing. And I don't mean it in a cynical way where you're being friends with them because you think that maybe they'll be useful for you sometime in the future. I mean, just keep updating them with, like, we still send Hewlett-Packard updates 15 years later. They haven't funded us after the first year. But we still send the guys an update just to thank them, you know? Like, the owner of Hewlett-Packard, at least until the 3-year retreat started, would get a report once every year or two about when he funded us, we had 3 people. And, you know, before the retreat, I think we were up to a couple hundred people working in India that we kept just out of, what do you call it? Gratitude. And just as it's classy. What do you call it? What's the fancy word for that? It's like noble to just keep, that person helped you 10 years ago. And you know they're not going to help you again. But it's just classy. And it's, what do you call it? It's like, I don't know how to say it, but it's etiquette. It's gracious. It's a courtesy, and it's just gracious to say, you know, we still remember you from 10 years ago that you started us on this project, you know, and we're really grateful. And people really like that, because then it makes them think about, in a way, it spreads the goodness, you know. If a person remembers something good they've done, even if they never intend to do more, just remembering is very good karma for them, like very powerful. So I think it's really good just to keep thanking people even years later. And so he should be in a position to keep doing that. That's my pitch for, now you got to help him get this typed up before he leaves for Vancouver.
We'll be together tomorrow morning at 10 in the morning.
Yeah. So what I mean is, even if you just email him or mail him the proposal before it gets submitted, and I'm sorry he's not here tonight, but maybe it's better. So you get to give him this whole lineage of all these ideas. And then he should jump on it, you know. And if it gets turned down, he should think about the next place he can ask for, you know. I mean, that's an important, you know, you got to be taksam, you know. If I get turned down 3 times, that's okay, and you keep asking. You don't know how many people have turned down the Asian Classics Input Project, you know. You have no idea of how many embarrassing, what do they call it? What do they call it when you get, there's a word for it in business. It's when you throw a salesman out of your office. It's shown the door, but there's another word for it. No, it's a funny expression. It's an idiom. What is it?
Pitch on the way out.
Bum's rush. Bum's rush. It's called bum's rush. You'll experience it. It's when you give this exciting presentation and the guy just looks in your face and says, "Now you get out of here, you know, I'm not interested at all." And you'll get the bum's rush. And then you just got to be graceful and you say, "Thank you very much for listening to me." And a lot of times, if you, on the way out, if you say, "You know anybody else who might be interested?" and then sometimes they stop and they say, "Yeah, my cousin might be interested," you know. And then he should know how to gracefully leave. And then as you're getting kicked out the door, like, "But do you know anybody else who might want to do it?" You know. And then we've had grants happen that way. We've had a lot of grants happen that way. So that's all. We'll stop there and have some refreshments. Okay, and then next one is in early August, and we'll keep going through the boring formal thing. Or what might be more fun if this group could start like an emailing each other with their comm idea, and then maybe if one of you has an idea, we could just go through that next time and brainstorm as a group for the next idea. I have a proposal, the Tucson 3 jewels. Okay, so think about that. Come ready next time with ideas for the person who's going to be the point person. We don't know who yet. I mean, the one person who really wants to work on it might not be able to do so financially, just because they have to support their family and they have to have a separate job for a while. And I think they might be able to do it once it gets going. But come back in early August, ready to brainstorm on ways to get the 3 jewels place in Tucson going, at least up and running, so that all the energy from early October, our program there, gets all the local energy gets funneled to someplace and doesn't just peter out after the program there. You know, it's very important to have. If there's this whole energy, then you got to be able to capture it and whoosh it into this little group that's going to be happening in Tucson 4 nights a week or something like that. Okay. All right. That's all. We'll just get what be in your mind. Okay. Okay.